Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another podcast of Galactic Ambassadors. And my name is Julia Balaz, and today I'm extra excited about the featured guest. I've been waiting on this podcast for, I think, since last year's September, was it, when we first time met. It is my absolute pleasure and delight to introduce to you the Galactic Garden Sanctuary team, coming all the way from the Big Island of Hawaii. And the reason why I'm extra excited about this podcast is because these guests are going to introduce the Vedic astrology combined with galactic astrology. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to extend the services and the wisdom of the Vedic traditions to our community. I've been receiving emails every now and then asking about Vedic astrology. So this is just such a dream come true, or wish fulfilled, that we now have the whole team of skilled astrologers and intuitives presenting their work. So without further ado, the names of the crew, Galactic Sanctuary, is we have James here on the left hand side. It's James E. Higgins, aka.
So it's James E. Higgins III is my legal name. My spiritual name is Nischintya Dasa, and my grandchildren fondly call me Grandpa Alien. And due to my time in Venice Beach, I was called the Wizard of Venice.
I love it. Thank you for that help. I would have totally messed up the spiritual name. So welcome, James. The beautiful lady in the middle, we have Sharon, who is the one that connected to galactic astrology concept and courses. Sharon is the one that felt drawn towards my energy, and we will reveal soon why that may have been so. And then on the right-hand side, we have Rick, the ship steward or captain.
Secretary, liaison.
You each have a very particular role. You work wonderfully together. It's been a real pleasure for me to connect with you on numerous occasions and get a peek behind the curtain of your collaborative efforts in serving people that are ready to receive answers and guidance. And really the feedback from your clients has been wonderful to see. So welcome, everyone, on this auspicious day, 6th of June, 2023. Anything about this particular day, James?
Well, you remember when you first gave us a day, I said, oh, no, not that day. And I picked this day because the moon went into the nakshatra of Uttara Prashad. Okay, so and that gives the special power of that nakshatra, Uttarashada. The special power is that it gives permanent victory. So, how could you go wrong with that one? And the one before it was kind of like Mula, which is kind of good for like, weed whacking and, starting wars and stuff like that. But we didn't feel it's like appropriate for our time here with our admiral of the fleet here, so. Yes, permanent victory is what we're shooting.
Much better aligned, yes. But usually before we start with every conversation that we had previously, and I understand also before every client session, James liked to say a prayer and or a blessing, right, to protect. It's
in almost every tradition. Like when I used to do this for Hawaiians, they go, "Oh, you're like the real deal, brah." Because they can actually recite their lineage going back, and we'd be here a half an hour. So mine is a little to my spiritual lineage, which has some really big time astrologers. My grandfather's spiritual master was actually predicted where they would discover the planet Pluto based on his calculations. So to that, and then the last invocation is to the demigod Ganesh, who he's really popular now, the elephant head. So not only does he remove obstacles, so everybody hearing this, the obstacles to understanding it get removed, but he is also the demigod who's in charge of astrology, so that, you're kind of getting those you're getting the blessings from my spiritual lineage and, the top demigod for astrologers.
What I learned from one of your texts that you've written is that if we learn to recite the prayer to Ganesh correctly, he will he will get on our side and he will whisper into our ear the correct information for us to share with the client. Right?
See, Julia is actually paying attention, folks. But yeah, that's true. They actually have you do a bunch of mantras to Ganesh, and they say whispers in your ear. For the record, I never hear Ganesh whispering in my ear or any of my spiritual lineage. So usually about 5 to 10 minutes into any reading I'm doing, I realize I'm not really doing the reading.
Very nice observation. Yeah,
some higher authorities have taken over and they're just kind of manipulating my brain and my mouth, but it's coming through me.
How it works.
So, it's still got that unique
flavor of your great sense of humor. Really good. Well, would you like to go ahead and...
Yes, it's for blessings for everybody. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhuttale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminitya Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvasesha Shanyavari Pastatya Deshitarne Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikai Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Iti Namane Panchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Parinam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanaya Krishna Prema Vidayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gordashe Namaha Namo Brahmanyavaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha Jagatai Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Sri Nischintya Jaya Jaya Nischintha Paladadesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringha Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jagannatha Swami, Nayanapatagami, Bhavatume, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bando, Jagapate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostite, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Bindabaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranami Hari Priye, Yat Parapalava Yogam, Benidaya Kumbha, Dwande Pranama Samai Sagnadaraja, Vignan Vihantum Malamasya Jagatrasya Govindam Maripurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. I love the vibe, the energy of the language. I love listening to Sanskrit prayers. I have quite a playlist now. That frequency makes me really high. Well, so thank you for sharing this one. Well, as you know, with our Galactic Ambassadors podcast, we always like to learn about the past, how the life guided you through experience to exploring spirituality, eventually astrology, how it led you to Galactic Astrology. Well, now we have the three of you. I wonder how shall we do this? But I think James, your story is quite extraordinary. So if you can give us a shortened version
of your extraordinary life.
And if anyone would be...
I don't want to keep you up too late, Julie.
I know. And then perhaps how Sharon and Rick were guided to connect with you, how the Galactic Garden Sanctuary kind of came to life.
So I'll just kind of start, not like we're at the very beginning, that's too much. But I'll just start, the first actual really... understanding of astrology came the first time I was getting married. I had a friend who was an astrologer, and it was kind of like a lark. It wasn't like I was really serious about it or anything. It was just like, hey, could you do our compatibilities and tell us what you think? And she was thrilled to do that. And then within 3 days, she came by and she goes, oh, you know what? Why don't I show you how to do this? And you can make your own decision. I was only 23 at the time, so I didn't know that was woman speak for, I really don't like it, but I'm not going to tell you that. So she showed me how to do it. And, this is tropical, aka Western astrology. So she showed me how it would be done. And I still use that. I don't use the Vedic compatibility system at all. I still use the Western system of synastry, putting one chart on top of another. So it seemed like really easy. And a lot of times people find astrology really easy, or the concepts really easy, are people who've come in contact with it in previous lives. You can't just be going, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And then we had a nice book. It was Western astrologers, and it's one of my favorite books, The Astrology of Human Relationships by Zakoyan and Acker. And so we're just reading the different, how the charts relate, and it wasn't very good. And then, we're just kind of like, okay, that's just astrology. It doesn't really mean that much, And then, like, within days and weeks, and I saw how accurate it was, I was like, ooh, this could be really helpful. And then I also saw that it had a broader perspective than just a romantic relationship. So I was kind of really successful at business already. So I had like almost a built-in clientele, because I figured right away that, they could use this for a business partner. Immediately, how, two charts relate. And then I could see, hiring employees. Oh my God, this is like worth its weight in gold. And then I kind of was like a hybrid from the beginning, even not, doing tropical astrology. But I would give, and also good days to open a store, or good days to cut the ribbon, or good days, sign the papers. And I would do that based on having that calendar I sent you, the BBT art calendar. So it has all kinds of auspicious days marked on there. So I'd be picking that. And I literally doing tropical. And it's interesting, if you look at the Vedic chart, I kind of learned how to do astrology at the very end of my Saturn period. Like, you're just beginning your Saturn. I learned it at the very end of my Saturn period. Saturn, then the last part is Saturn-Jupiter period. I learned it. And then the next 17 years was the Mercury period, which was really good for doing business. So doing tropical astrology, I literally, both in my own business and doing consulting for people, we didn't used to say you were an astrologer back then. We were a business consultant. The people knew that you were doing astrology, but you couldn't tell. That happened after the Reagan said that, they were using an astrologer. Then it became really like hip and chic to have an astrologer. So I was like, okay. So we literally made millions of dollars doing it that way. And then in 1984, I had moved to Los Angeles and came in contact with people who were practicing Vedic astrologers, but they, and so I hired them, like, okay, let's just see how this works. I've always been like, okay, let's see how this works. So I hired them to do it. And then they're trying to explain things to me. And I really quickly, based on my knowledge of Western or tropical astrology, was like, well, it really is another, like, wait, this is really easy. Why are these guys saying these things? So I kind of fired them after 3 months. And I just started studying the literature that was out there in English. Previously, you had to have a degree in Sanskrit to actually become a Vedic astrologer, because all of it was in Sanskrit, but the things had been translated. So I added that into the practice of doing business astrology. So you got to remember, it's a 17-year Mercury period, and that's pretty much. It's not that I didn't do individual charts, but it was really concentrating on the business aspect of it and calculating. So then I just started calculating everything from the Vedic perspective, which is astronomically correct. If you saw my little thing on being Timothy Leary's astrologer, I went, oh no, I did it. So, but using a lot of Western techniques, a lot of the tropical astrology techniques, especially the synastry, and then picking and looking for good transits also. So the Vedic system, you'll see, has both major periods and minor periods. But there's also the Western system of transits, especially when it's planets going over natal planets, was really powerful. And then, so that's, 17 years of doing. And then when I hit my K2 period, it was more like doing individual. I was still doing business charts, don't get me wrong. But, I was doing more individual people, and the K2 period was much, it was harder. K2 in the 12th, south node of the moon in the 12th house. So it was a lot harder. And what for me, what happened was that, I would be able to help people, but I couldn't really relate to people's suffering. Jupiter in the 9th house there, things are going really good. That K2 period developed compassion and empathy, because, now I know what these people are going through. And then, so basically I've just been I did that. And then about when I was in my middle of my Venus period, I met my first and only graduate student. They're almost there, but we worked for like 2 years doing those nakshatra reports that you really liked. There was, think about it, it was like 2 years of working. Yeah. Oh, I'm not really cut out. Well, you can see exalted Saturn, he can do it. And I'll start to switch over now to our other crew members here. So I eventually get to Hawaii, and this is where the plot thickens.
We linked up with James for the first time, or cross paths at actually his son's Krishna cow sanctuary, which isn't too far away from here. And we had met his son. Son introduced us to James. We learned that he was a Vedic astrologist, and we had never had a Vedic astrology reading before. So we immediately embarked on his services, and it was an amazing experience. And from there on out, we had developed not only a relationship with him as a Vedic astrologer, but we also became friends and crossed paths many times at local community markets and festivals. And the Krishna Cow Sanctuary always had festivals going on. And so we got to know his son, got to know him, really started to move into at least a better understanding for the Vedic astrology and also the cows. You have to put a thing. If it wasn't for the Krishna Cow Sanctuary, we probably would have never linked up. So, and his son, I mean, we could go into a story in and of itself, but his son today has expanded that Krishna Cow Sanctuary out to over 100 cows that he,
last count was 160 cows.
Isn't it interesting? I believe something in his horoscope, something in his Vedic chart mentions connection to...
Julie, you're like a genius, aren't you? Remember these?
I remember, I pay attention.
Yeah, really good memory. Yes.
Can you tell us, just to point out how specific Vedic astrology can be?
My son, in Vedic astrology, my son's a Scorpio rising, so for a Scorpio rising, the moon becomes the ruler of the 9th house, which is your house of good fortune. It really is like, okay, 9th house is like really good to have planets there. They do really well. So the ruler of his 9th house is the moon, which also rules cows, rules liquids, milk, mothers, etc. But it also rules cows. And so his moon is in Taurus. And in Vedic astrology, they'll actually even have the highest degree of exaltation. So everybody knows the moon's exalted in Taurus, just like some really nice lady we know. They're exalted moon in Taurus. So he has the exalted moon, but it's the highest degree I've ever seen. It's almost 3 degrees. 3 degrees is the highest degree of exaltation for the moon in Vedic astrology. So he's got it right there, and it's also with Mars, so it forms what they call a Chandramangala yoga. So it's interesting that this planet that would give him great good fortune is at the highest degree of exaltation, and he's got 160 cows. I think he's got he's got millions of views on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and
that's because he does cow cuddles.
Yeah, and he does the cow cuddle tour. He figured out, it's mystical. Anybody who visits in Hawaii, we highly recommend the cow cuddle tour and therapy. And it is, and he explained it. We were over there, me and Rick were over there once, and he goes, "Hey, look at Dad." Just, he gets,
They're actually beautiful animals. I have to say, last week, me passing by a field of cows. Calves. Yeah, thank you. And I cannot not stop and just be with them for at least 5-10 minutes and just observing them and connecting with them. They're just such beautiful animals. So I totally get it why people are drawn to it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, he's got a bunch of those, 5-star Yelp reviews, and people tell him it changed their whole life. And then he explained to us, scientifically, he's pretty smart, he's got a booty yogi. He's really smart. So, he explained to us that because you lay on kind of like lean up against the cow, and then the cow will put its head on your chest. And he said that the cow's heartbeat, is slightly slower than yours, and the body temperature is slightly, higher than yours. So it automatically sets up a frequency that calms you down, makes you peaceful, makes you And it's, if you think about it, it's cows, it's ruled by the moon. It's the number one thing, in other words, that if you want peace of mind, you got to have your moon taken care of,
That was a lovely detour.
Oh, and this is another, you better remember, you have to be the adult in this relationship, Julia. But when I first got here, I was here for the first month I was here, 3 cows were born. One of them was a bull. One was a bull. And normally they'll make the bull into an oxen, So, but I did the charts for him. And I told him, I said, you might want to keep him as a bull because he's got a really good chart for children and grandchildren. And, and interestingly enough, he is his number one, stud.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much actually for sharing that story, because it's a conversation that we had in our QSG practitioners community a couple of times about charts for animals of any type. So this is fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I tried to get my daughter to do, because she's like a horse whisperer. Really, even wild horses will just like calm down around her and talk to her and stuff like that. So I tried to get her to do, I was like, looking in Hollywood, these people all have like horses and they spend fortunes on them. You can make a fortune doing horse astrology. And she goes, I don't like Los Angeles and I don't like Hollywood people. Anyway.
You didn't tempt her with that.
No, she wasn't tempted. But yes, you can. It would be, at one point I just, it's just too busy. I always wanted to do like race horses and see, you can look at
absolutely, yes.
You can see, this is going to be a winner. There. Or this one would be this one would be good to put out, to stud.
Today's transits and all. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully any of the viewers will, there's someone out there who can totally be drawn to that niche.
Oh yeah.
Make sense.
Well, and if you need any cow charts done, he's the guy to go. Also with children, you do.
Oh yeah, no, well, I have a new apprentice and she's fairly young. She's like 23 years old. So we're about 5, 10, 15 minutes into the reading. She goes, this would have been really good to get like right after I was born, this information. And it's true in Vedic culture, and pretty much really, if you look at ancient cultures around the world, they always called in the shaman, the astrologer, the priest, the kahuna, to look at the omens and the stars to figure out the child's, and I really, because when you're talking with somebody who's already been here, you're picking up a lot of other stuff too, not just what's in the stars, So, but with a child, all you're doing is pretty much like, here's a chart. They're just, pooping and peeing, But it's, I love it when people call. Huh?
Yeah, I have to say, for parents of a newborn, getting a reading for their child, a newborn, can be very eye-opening and just feeling very reassuring, or kind of preparing them for how they can best support the path or potential of the child. I believe some of our certified practitioners do that. They do children's and newborns, and you guys obviously too, but with the Vedic astrology included. So it can be invaluable. Yeah.
Oh, it's very valuable. That's why every culture in the world would have the astrologer come in and say, hey, this is what's going on here. Yeah. And I always like it because people will always call me like years later and go, oh my God, she's just like you said she was. That makes you happy.
It's in the stars.
And the other aspect of that, like you had mentioned, Julia, is the relationship. It really helps with the relationship between, the parents and the child, because they better understand, what's going on, and then vice versa, understanding themselves. So that's been a real benefit I've seen.
Well, I just want to say we all feel honored to be in your presence.
Oh,
we do. And what you've opened up to us, not just with Vedic, but in our hearts as well.
Thank you.
And I've always had a connection with nature, going out, being in harmony, being grounded. My careers have always taken me into garden designs, working with plants, flora and fauna, and it's just been a really good experience, just living here and doing what I've felt from the heart mainly. But I did read Dolores Cannon's books, the custodians and the 3 waves of volunteers. And I saw Lisa Royal Holt. She was doing some channeling. I think we saw her on Gaia on Ruben Longden's show. I also really enjoy her Galactic Heritage cards. I know you pointed that out to other people to take a look at them. And I just find them fascinating. I know James was even playing with them yesterday, going, wow, look at this. Before I met you, I started having some lucid dreams, going off planet, visiting star nations, connecting with that energy, just feeling a really strong connection with it also. And so last May, when I did see you on Pam Gregory's show, I just felt this bonding, this intense, clear understanding that this is more than what is just wonderful. When you talked about the Galactic Astrology soul connection and your work with Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis techniques, or QHHT, it was just clear to me that I needed to do this. And with Rick encouraging me to go ahead and take the 101 course. And so I started doing that. And then I downloaded a lot of charts. And of course, James's was the first. Rick went ahead and took it over to his place, and they started talking about it.
And yeah, that because she was, hey, what do you think? And I'm kind of like, well, that's interesting because I'm, in other words, galactic astrology is, actually Vedic astrology is galactic. And when you're looking at those nakshatras, they're tied to all different types of star systems. So I was immediately like, this is really interesting. Somebody's like taking it another step further than even the Vedas have. So, and I was like watching how the different things matched up. And then when I saw both of your charts, your chart and her chart, I go, oh, look at that. So from the Vedic point of view, your ascendant is in the nakshatra of Kritika. And Kritika is the nakshatra that in Western we would call the Pleiades. And I was just like, well, look at that, and especially you, I was almost like if we were like calling central casting, hey, we need a Palladian, we got Julia. You want to try her? It's like right out of central casting. So, and I find it very interesting because in Vedic astrology, the Pleiades, Kritika, are the home of the 7 sages, the 7 basic sages who give knowledge to mankind kind of deal. Oh, is this starting to sound familiar, right? They're, they like to, and interestingly enough, though, a lot of times they're not just all sages, because it's also the home of the person who lends his name actually to the nakshatra, Kritika. His name is Kartikeya, and he's the commander-in-chief of the demigod armies. So, in other words, there's a lot, so you have and it's interesting to see, as certain people have a tendency to be more of the warlike Palladians, and other are more like the sage. And, sometimes I hope you're never offended, but I regularly go, oh yeah, Julia's like a hybrid between a sage and a cheerleader. You can't beat that. A knowledgeable person who just kind of cheers you on. Really, it's like having the best coach in school.
So the work you mentioned earlier, some of the booklets that you've created that go over the key information of all of the 27 nakshatras that are connected to different star system. And so I got my hands on this only recently, and I just love how there is correlation to the experiences that I've had through people's life stories and their journeys through past life. It's just mind-blowing or fascinating and intriguing how there is connection as well to these ancient Vedic translations or downloads or channelings of the information, that there really is something to it. It's just incredible. The divine or cosmic intelligence is beyond what we can ever imagine. So, your work, whether it's translation or channeling, or whatever it is.
What you have there Well, in other words, I had been doing astrology and, I added the Vedic paradigm to it. You're looking at your lunar star guide. Okay. So I've been doing it, and in other words, I kind of understood that, as you're doing it, and that's why they say the more gray hairs your astrologer has, the better. And then people start, even before I went really gray, people started looking. I go, it's a poetic way of saying you want somebody with a lot of experience, both life experience and astrology experience. So I had a bunch of experience. And nothing really, more stuff had come out about the Nakshatras than when I first started, but there wasn't really much in there. And my apprentice at the time, she was born and bred in Japan, Hamamatsu, Japan. But it was kind of like, really, if I didn't have an exalted Saturn, I wouldn't have made it. It really was like every day just going over what was in my brain and what was available in English to talk about. And she's really the person, the writing style, the information's been extracted, a lot of it from me. She extracted that. That's a talent in itself to extract all that. And then referencing it with other books that were out, she really created both what you're looking at, the lunar star guide. I mean, we did it together, but she did the real writing part of it. I regularly go, well, here's what I want to say, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, now put that into English. Japanese, and put it in.
It was a fruitful collaboration.
Yeah, it was another collaboration. And then you also, when we send people their charts, they get that the nakshatra. So you got a lunar star guide that tells you where the moon is that day, and then what's a good thing to do for the day, and then what's some things you might want to put off to another day just based on what's there. And then there's also another set of books, but we don't, until somebody's like taking a full course, is we send it to every client where they're, and most Vedic astrologers, it's very interesting. Most Vedic astrologers will only touch on what the moon nakshatra is, and they don't really get very deep in it. Practicing for so many years and then having her really bring it out of me, how important the nakshatras were. And ancient times, the Vedic astrologers are much more concerned about the nakshatras than they were about the signs and things like that. If you read the 5,000-year-old Srimad Bhagavatam, it doesn't say that Krishna is a Taurus rising with his moon in Taurus. It says he's, it's Rohini rising with the moon in Rohini. So, and then there was a guy who did this planetarium software, and he just put in the dates that are there in ancient scriptures, but they're done based on, where the moon was, what nakshatra Saturn was in. So it's done so any culture could look at it and go, oh, this is, they could see it. And he saw that, whoa, these things are actually 5,000 years old, because it's impossible for a human to calculate that far back and talk about stuff. It just matches up exactly. So the nakshatras were a big part of it. And so I was I would say, it really helped. And really, just like when you got yours, you go, oh, this is really spot on. So everybody does that. They're just like, ooh, that's really spot on. Oh, you got me pegged.
It's really wonderful to see. I was relieved to hear your experience with my course and the calculator. I was literally at the edge of my seat. Have I done it justice? Have I done it right or not? So when you kind of validated the information there, I was really grateful. And it's true that the connection to stars can give such a precise flavor to how we present ourselves to the world or how we experience the inner world. It gets to the point, once you learn a lot about the stars, it gets to a point where you almost can just look at the stars' connection to the planets, and you will really understand a person through all their multifaceted life experience or embodiment of cosmos. It's very powerful. So I'm so happy that astrologers all around the world are now picking up on the fixed stars and working with that, as it will add so many layers and greater quality or the highest standard, or certainly offer better guidance for people that seek answers through astrology. So, Sharon, when you showed James the calculator, and can you take us then through how you started kind of practicing the galactic astrology concepts? Like, how do the three of you work together when a client comes to you, they give you their birth details, what happens then?
Well, like you were saying, finding the galactic astrology chart so fascinating, the characteristics, the traits, the teachings from the star nations, the challenges. And then we zoomed again in September. And you mentioned that you suggested that I should go for the buffet or the the Quantum Soul Guidance Practitioners course. And then moving from the Galactic Astrology 101, which was just the cup of tea. And you were right about that, because that buffet.
Remember that comment? Yeah, I don't know why I said that. It felt like it. That was the only time actually I used that analogy. Yeah, that the basic course is like a nice cup of tea, but the practitioner's course is a full buffet, or yeah, something like that. Okay, so
and then I talked to James, and then he said, "Well, I think we should go with Eastern or Vedic astrology, and I can mentor you two." And that just sounded really good to us.
That was what sort of brought it all together after our meeting in September, and you suggesting to make that move. And it just prior to that is when and this is where I wanted to screen share.
This first image is both Sharon's and Julia's chart. Sharon's is on the left and Julia's on the right. Prior to exploring the in the sky charts and their direct correlation with the Vedic charts, James had pointed out that both Sharon and Julia had the same ascendant or rising sign conjunct the nakshatra Kritika, commonly known as the Pleiades. I had to see what this looked like in the sky. I am a visual person and have been a sailor for most of this incarnation. Navigating the stars or sailing to the stars, Sharon and Julia's ascendant or rising sign are in the constellation of Taurus, which is located just off the chart. And that would be over in this area here on Julia's and this area here on Sharon's. I'm using the cursor now to circle the Pleiades. This is located on the northeastern horizon on each chart. So this is the Pleiades in Sharon's chart, and this would be the Pleiades in Julia's chart. Please note, in Vedic astrology, each planet, the sun, the moon, ascendant, and nonagesimal, which is the MP or midpoint, are conjunct a nakshatra within a sign. Now, nakshatras are 27 stars located on or near the ecliptic, and like any conjunction, these energies merge and amplify the characteristics of each other. An interesting note, nakshatras are likely the original stars of the galactic astrology, with Vedic astrology texts dating back 5,000 years. Perhaps later in this podcast, James can go through more detail regarding the nakshatras. Now let's move through the visible constellations along the ecliptic. We will start with the Pleiades in Taurus, which is here, and then move up through Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, and finally over to Scorpio. Again, on Sharon's chart, you'll see the same arrangement. We begin Taurus, which is just off here, up to Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, and more of Scorpio is showing on Sharon's chart. We have seen that Sharon and Julia share the same AC conjunction in Kritika or the Pleiades here. But let's move up to Pisces and look at another conjunction. This is the Mars in Pisces, conjunct the nakshatra Ravati. And Ravati is located right here in the V section of Pisces, right in here. So this is the conjunction. And if we notice, this is Julia's chart here, and she has Mars conjunct Ravati. And if we go over to Sharon's chart, we'll also notice that Sharon has Mars conjunct Ravati. So that's just one of the comparisons we wanted to show. Now let's move quickly through the constellations again. Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, and finally over to Scorpio. to look at another conjunction over here. And let's just stop for a moment and look at Sharon's chart. We have a bright star up here in the southwestern horizon. That is in Scorpio. And in the Vedic astrology, they would refer to this as Jesta. Our more common name for it is Antares. So that's where it's located in Sharon's chart. And if you notice Sharon has Saturn here, and Saturn is in Scorpio, and it is conjunct Jesta or Antares. If we go over to Julia's chart, we'll see she also has a planet here. The name isn't there, but that is actually Jupiter. And this is Antares right here. So you see that Julia has her Jupiter conjunct Jesta, the nakshatra Jesta or Antares. Before we move to the next screen, I wanted to point out one other constellation that is in the center of both of their charts, and that's Cygnus, located here, and also Cygnus here in Sharon's chart. I just wanted to point out that the nebula that you see behind us in this podcast is the Cygnus Loop Nebula. And so that would be the location of that particular nebula. I'm just going to reduce the size of this screen right now and get ready to share the next one. Okay, and for chart orientation, we're now at the next chart, and that's an image of Julia's in the sky chart alongside her primary Vedic chart. And now let's begin to explore the astronomy of astrology and see how the in the sky chart correlates directly with the Vedic astrology chart. Without going into too much detail, the Vedic chart utilizes signs and symbols instead of names. And for reference, I've added the house numbers to the chart. Let's start again with Julia's ascendant in Taurus. Here we see this diagonal line on the Vedic chart indicates the ascendant, and we see the symbol for Taurus. Now, if we look at it's in Taurus, it's in the first house. So if we go over to the horizon and look at the ascendant, we see her ascendant is conjunct Pleiades, and this is Kritika, the nakshatra. So if we move to the next, moving from Taurus and the Pleiades, we're going to move up into Aries. Aries is the 12th house. And in Aries, we see Venus. If we move over to the Vedic chart, we see that we're in Aries in the 12th house, and we see the symbol for Venus. And you can see how the two directly correlate with one another. Moving up to Pisces, the first thing we see in Pisces is Mars. Pisces, we've talked about that. The nakshatra is Ravati, which is here. And if we see right here in Pisces, this is the symbol for Pisces, 11th house, we see the symbol for Mars in the nakshatra Ravati. Now we're moving to the sun. Sun will be the next, and we notice the sun is also in Pisces. And in this case, the sun is conjunct the nakshatra Uttara Bhadrapada. That's indicated with this abbreviation here. This is the sun, the symbol for the sun in Pisces in the 11th house. So you can see how these transfer directly onto the chart. We're now going to move into the next, which is Mercury, which is here. Mercury is in the nakshatra Purva Bhadrapada, and both the constellations Uttara Bhadrapada, Purva Bhadrapada, right here, conjunct the sun. Both of them are in the constellation of Pegasus. So our conjunctions come in Pegasus. With the sun, the conjunction is down here in Uttara Bhadrapada. And with Mercury, the conjunction is here in Pegasus, Purva Bhadrapada. Now we're going to move up to Aquarius. And in Aquarius, that's where we have Julia's MP or nonagesimal. That nonagesimal is in the nakshatra Dhanishta. And Dhanishta is in the constellation of Delphinus. So we have the midpoint, which is up here. You wouldn't see any location because it's a point, but the conjunction is with Delphinus right here. And that's located again on the Vedic chart. Here's the sign for Aquarius, and there's Dhanishta. We move up to Capricorn. We see that we don't have anything in Capricorn. We also do not have anything in Capricorn here. But as we move to Sagittarius, we see that we have both Ketu, which is the south node, and Neptune, both in Sagittarius in the 8th house. We don't see them in the sky chart because they're not visible planets. Next, we'll move to Scorpio, and our visible planet in Scorpio is Jupiter. And we already had talked that it is conjunct Antares, or the nakshatra Jesta. So if we come over here, Scorpio in the 7th house, we see the symbol for Jupiter and Jesta, the acronym for Jesta, which is Antares. So at that point, we're now about ready to go to our next screen. And this takes into account all 3 charts. So we're just going to see the cross correlation between all three charts. We've been looking at the in the sky chart and the Vedic chart. Now we just want to see how they cross with one another. So we're going to start with Jupiter. Jupiter in Scorpio in the 7th house. If we go over to Jupiter on the galactic chart, you can see that we've put in the Vedic sign and house. But if we look at the first conjunction that is shown here, the conjunction is Antares. And so once again, Jesta is Antares. And so these charts correlate with one another directly. If we go back up the Vedic chart to Mercury and the Sun in Pisces, and we're looking again at the Nakshatras Purva Bhadrapada and Uttara Bhadrapada of the Nakshatras are in the constellation Pegasus. And so we're looking at the stars Markab, Sheet, and Algeneb. So if we go over now to the Sun in Pisces in the 11th house, we look at the first conjunction, Pegasus, and the star referenced is Sheet. And then if we go down to Mercury in Pisces in the 11th house, we look that our constellation conjunction is Pegasus and it's Markab. So that's showing how the 3 charts are interrelating with one another. And now finally back to where we began the journey with the charts, and that is the ascendant, the Pleiades or Critica in Taurus in the 1st house. So we go up to the AC through Taurus, 1st house, and our first conjunction, if you look here, are the Pleiades. So you can see at this point how the 3 charts align and correlate with one another. And this really encouraged and helped us to create the Galactic Garden Sanctuary collaborative session. I'm going to reduce the size of this particular screen now, and we're going to just bump quickly over to looking at our website. Our website is galacticgardensanctuary.com. This is the top section of our homepage, Journey to the Stars, Galactic Garden Sanctuary. This is our About page. This features a brief history of our Galactic Garden Sanctuary's Master Astrologer, James E. Higgins III, a.k.a. Nischintya Dasa, a.k.a. Grandpa Alien, a.k.a. The Wizard, and also brief bios of his apprentices, both Sharon and I. This is our services page featuring our collaborative Vedic Galactic Astrology and Quantum Soul Guidance session, beginning with an introduction to the astronomy of astrology, an exploration of your in the sky chart, the relationship and introduction to your Vedic astrology chart with myself, Captain Rick. Yes, that's me. And then on to a comprehensive 2-hour Vedic astrology chart reading with Master Astrologer with over 47 years of experience in the field of astrology. And as a Vedic scholar, James has integrated the astronomical Vedic chart and Nakshatras, the original galactic astrology, with aspects of the Western chart, creating an all-encompassing Vedic galactic astrology reading with remedial measures for the journey ahead. And to close the collaborative session, a Vedic Galactic Astrology Starseed Report and session with certified Quantum Soul Guidance practitioner and Starseed Gardener, Sharon. And yes, this is our contact page featuring an image of the Galactic Garden Sanctuary crew. For more information and or to book a session, simply click on one of the contact buttons on our website. Our email address is info@galacticgardensanctuary.com.
So much wisdom, true experience. It's a real blessing to see the opportunity of James getting another kick out of astrology, taking it even to yet another level in collaboration with two beautiful people.
Well, as they say in Japan, Julia.
The Pleiadian frequency with Sharon and Rick. There's also certainly Arcturian. Do you have Arcturus, if I remember correctly, in your chart? Which star system do you feel?
Well, it is. It's been. I would have to say it's been more. I guess a blend. Yeah, a blend of many. But I can see very well how. I guess maybe it would go back to when James and I originally met, and he kind of did the original reading. He picked up that I was.
I tell you'll love this. Because I was taught by an Italian psychic how to read the Akashic records. And then I studied with a coven of witches to see how they did it. And then some, Babylonian Egyptian people, see how they did it. And so I would actually stay up till midnight on a new moon and then have a list of people who want to know about their past lives. And then thank God, at some point, people just morph. So, really, I'll be in Starbucks and somebody just morphs into that. And I go, hey, did you know in a previous life? So that's regularly part of the reading. I pick up on things. So I told Rick, a UFO pilot, and he's a sailor. I mean, if you look at what he does now, it's really, and Sharon, I said, she was from Siddhaloka, which is also kind of like the seven sages, the Pleiades. I said, Siddhaloka, and you're in the Himalayas and, there's snow on the mountain, and she's had where she actually been there with them, she relates that, okay, he does that. And then I always like to point out, you guys are kind of volunteers. And I just always go, and I was shanghaied into this. And that's a whole different story that we won't take up now. But
I'm sure it would be a real treat to experience, in-person session, really visiting your beautiful Galactic Garden Sanctuary in Hawaii. I'm sure I'll pay a visit when I visit Hawaii one day, which I'm.
And just remember, don't wait until you're actually ready, because you're entering a major Saturn period. It goes for 19 years. Service to humanity.
No, I would say 2-3 years and I'm there.
Okay, because you're welcome anytime, Julia.
And you experience the Galactic Gardens. We do have lots of gardens, and you did hear that you have started your own garden as well. So that's good to hear. I definitely, when Sharon, when you were talking about your previous experience, how much you felt connected to nature, I said so many times that if I wasn't doing this, my second choice of occupation would be garden design or working with nature. And I do spend fair amount of time in the garden, and I'll share my updates in summer when everything is in full bloom. Can't wait. Sounds great. Yeah. So just to briefly, answer that question about the star configuration, I have always sort of felt that it's more having, and it may be what James had mentioned, just that there's been a lot of travel and a lot of interaction between a number of star systems. So I feel really comfortable, in
UFO pilot, going there.
So
that's wonderful to hear.
Along those.
Beautiful. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to share on the podcast today?
We love you, Julia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's mutual.
And
I was really excited about this call, and I really couldn't wait, and I can't wait to share this with the public and get their feedback, and just be able to forward people who are drawn to Vedic astrology more so than tropical Western astrology towards you, and knowing that they'll be in really good hands. Really super well done. Couldn't be prouder.
Well,
Thank you.
and they say in Japan, arigato gozaimashita, or as we say in Hawaii, mahalo nui loa.
Yeah.
Thank you, heartfelt thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Or as they say in Avatar, I see you.
there you go. See, we're on a roll here.
Wonderful.
And really, I can see it's kind of like your mission. They must, okay, we got, really, you must have some relationship to that. Like this lady just sent here for a purpose. And, that's why I think the book about how your journey has got to be fascinating. It's like
one day, James, one day.
Okay. Well, we won't push you, Saturn exalted, they've just pushed themselves. You don't have to really.
Divine timing for everything. Well, thank you so much, guys, for your light, for sharing your excitement, your passion. I'm sure that it'll infect in a most positive way our audience and pique their curiosity. This really is what our Galactic Ambassadors podcast is meant to be about, to bring expansion of consciousness and support the evolution of our collective experience. So I'm so grateful for you, and sending much love to all. We'll see you again next time.
We're
Cheerio.
so grateful for you. Much love.
Aloha.